You spend more time fighting your own reactions than solving actual problems. You wake up tired, your mind already running scenarios that haven't happened. You sit down to work and feel resistance before you even start. The internal machine is running, but you're not the one operating it. You're just dealing with whatever it outputs. Henry Ford didn't build the Model T by hoping the assembly line would figure itself out. He mapped every movement, eliminated every wasted motion, controlled every variable. Your internal system, the one generating your focus, emotional responses, and energy levels, operates on the same principle. It's a machine. Right now, you're letting it run on autopilot while wondering why the output is inconsistent. Most people treat their mind like weather. They wait to see what mood shows up, what motivation appears, what focus arrives. They react to their own internal states as if they're external conditions beyond control. You feel anxious, so you manage the anxiety. You feel unmotivated, so you try to generate motivation. You're treating symptoms instead of operating the system. Stop here. This is the first error. You don't have a mood problem. You have an operator problem. The machine doesn't malfunction. It runs exactly as it's programmed to run. When you feel scattered, it's because the system is processing scattered inputs. When you feel drained, it's because the system burns fuel inefficiently. The problem isn't the machine. It's that no one taught you how to run it. Your internal machine has 3 core subsystems: input processing, pattern recognition, and energy allocation. Input processing takes everything you consume, information, interactions, environments, and converts it into operational data. Pattern recognition compares that data against stored templates and generates responses. Energy allocation distributes your physical and cognitive resources based on what the system determines is priority. Here's what happens when you don't control these subsystems. Input processing runs indiscriminately. You scroll, consume, react, and the system treats everything as equally important. Pattern recognition defaults to survival templates, threat detection, social comparison, uncertainty avoidance. Energy allocation responds to the loudest signal, not the most important one. You end up with a machine running at full capacity, producing outputs you don't want. The illusion is thinking you need to fix your emotions or improve your mindset. You don't need better feelings, you need better operations. Ford didn't motivate workers into efficiency. He redesigned the process so efficiency was the default output. You're trying to change results without changing the system that produces them. Here's the bottleneck. You're confusing operation with experience. You think controlling the machine means controlling how you feel. It doesn't. Controlling the machine means controlling what you feed it, what patterns you reinforce, and where you direct its resources. Feelings are output. You don't control output directly. You control inputs and processes. Rule: your internal machine runs on protocols, not preferences. If you want different output, install different operating procedures. This isn't about discipline or willpower. This is about system design. Ford didn't rely on workers trying harder. He built a system where the correct action was the easiest action. You do the same with your internal machine. 3 subsystems, 3 interventions. First subsystem: input control. Everything you take in becomes operational data. Your system doesn't distinguish between useful input and noise. It processes everything and adjusts accordingly. Set intake parameters. Decide what data enters the system and when. If you're consuming content that generates comparison loops or uncertainty spirals, you're feeding the machine corrupted inputs. Remove them. You wouldn't run diesel in a gasoline engine. Don't run low-grade inputs through a precision system. Second subsystem: pattern override. Your machine defaults to inherited patterns, most designed for environments you no longer operate in. Threat detection that made sense for physical survival creates constant anxiety in information-rich environments. The intervention is pattern interruption. When you catch a response that doesn't match current conditions, stop and map it. What triggered it? What template is running? What would a more efficient response look like? You're not suppressing the pattern, you're updating it. Ford constantly refined assembly sequences. You do the same with behavioral sequences. Third subsystem: energy routing. Your machine allocates resources based on perceived priority, and perception is shaped by conditioning and environment. Track where your energy actually goes for 1 week. Not where you think it goes, where it measurably goes. How much goes to reactive tasks versus planned work? How much to decision-making versus execution? How much to maintenance versus output? Once you see the distribution, you can redesign it. Pause here. Real example. Engineer in product development. Constantly felt drained, assumed it was workload. Mapped energy allocation, found 60% went to context switching between shallow tasks, 25% to managing other people's urgency, 15% to actual design work. Redesigned the protocol, blocked morning hours for deep work, batched communication to specific windows, set explicit criteria for what qualified as urgent. Energy distribution shifted to 60% design work, 25% collaboration, 15% reactive tasks. Same machine, same hours, different output. This is how you run the internal machine. You don't fight it. You don't wait for it to cooperate. You control what goes in, update the patterns governing processing, and direct where resources go. The machine does what it's designed to do. Your job is to design it correctly. Ford's assembly line didn't require better workers. It required better systems. Your internal machine doesn't require better feelings. It requires better operations. Install the protocols. Run them consistently. The output will follow. If this framework makes sense, map your own subsystems this week. Track inputs, identify default patterns, measure energy distribution. You'll find the exact points where control is possible. Then install the changes and run